it's shocking the first time I heard it, and I'm still surprised each time I read it, that 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. Yeah. Can you shed any light on how that happens? Angie, I'm so excited to be here.
I am too. Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, I love your bubbly, happy personality.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the first thing that I think I want to know, and most people want to know, is what was it that drew you to audiology?
So I always wanted to be in the medical field, and I wanted to be a radiologist my entire life, like my uncle. Okay. And I got to college and I knew I wanted a family, and I started thinking being a doctor, that's probably going to take a lot of my life, and I want the flexibility to not be on call. Mm-hmm. And so my mother worked for a neuro-otologist, and I followed him around for the summer. He had me meet a couple audiologists, and I just fell in love. It has been my calling, and I really love what I do.
So there had to be like something, a moment that happened that's like, that tripped that.
I will tell you, one of the first things was all the audiologists I saw worked part-time. And what that meant was work-life balance. So the whole time my kids were in school, I had 2 days a week where I volunteered in their school, and I worked 3 days. Nice. So I loved that part of it. I fell in love working with seniors. As an audiologist, you can specialize in a lot of different things.
Okay.
And I found working with older folks, especially the counseling aspect and just helping them to communicate better.
It's good. I find it always fascinating how people find their niche in life. So that's amazing. And so your mom kind of opened the door for you.
And I am very thankful to that physician, and I always will be.
Yeah, very good. So your business here is here now. Mm-hmm. And you've been here how long?
So we started in this location January 2020. For the 2 years prior, it was just me, and I worked in an ENT office. I rented space from him. Okay. And then as that started to develop, I knew I needed my own place. And we found this location in January 2020.
January 2020. And you're here still. That's amazing.
Yes, we are. We just rented this space next door. We're expanding. Our business is growing quicker than we know what to do with.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. So I am... I wrote the book, My Monster Truck.
Yes.
And very interested in the deaf community and the hard of hearing. My interest goes more towards children. Okay. But I'm also working on a project. We're doing some books for seniors.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's exciting. So talk to us about, there's different ways, you can develop hearing loss, mm-hmm. or you're born with it. Mm-hmm. So
number one is probably aging. And we call that presbycusis. That is hearing loss simply by getting older. It's not inevitable that you'll have hearing loss when you age, but it's very likely.
Yeah.
And so that's the big one. We also, noise exposure is a big concern amongst our veterans, especially here in the Metro Detroit. We've got the auto workers, think construction, think hunters. Yeah. Lots of noise here. Yeah. Genetics is a big one. So you can be born with hearing loss. And so we see that more often in children.
Yeah. That's a statistic that fascinates me. And I just can't quite wrap my head around the phenomenon of it. And it's shocking the first time I heard it. And I'm still surprised each time I read it, that 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. Yeah. Can you shed any light on how that happens?
That's probably more of a genetics question than me. Yeah. But just like any other disease process, disorder, abnormality, it can happen. There can be a family history. Mm-hmm. So we quite frequently see families that pass on their hearing loss. So for instance, I have a father. He is in his early 40s. He was born with hearing loss. 4 of his 5 children have hearing loss. And if I put their audiograms next to each other, they're virtually identical.
Really?
So we've got that huge family tie. But then we can also say, how did that child be born diabetic when there's no history of diabetes?
Right.
Same with hearing loss, just something in that Genetic sequence.
Yeah. But it fascinates me. So, and I know the deaf community, they don't consider hearing loss disability.
Correct.
They consider that celebration time.
Yes.
Yeah, he's kind of one of us, or she's one of us, and we can communicate with sign language. But for the parent that's hearing and the family that's hearing, it can be quite devastating.
It can. I can't comment on that as much as I'd like, other than I see, especially today in social media, there are groups for deaf and hearing impaired.
Yeah.
The deaf community is such a close, tight-knit community, and they really do not feel hearing loss is a disability or deafness.
Right.
And so they're very resistant perhaps to wanted intervention for maybe a cochlear implant because they don't feel anything is wrong. But when you have one parent who can't communicate because of not knowing ASL, that's got to be a really difficult family dynamic.
Yeah, it is. And families will embrace it and take it on as a new challenge, like, okay, it's a new journey we're on.
Yeah.
Other families just completely go into a not good space.
And I've seen it. We years ago diagnosed a 4-year-old girl with progressive hearing loss.
Okay.
And I remember sitting with her mom and just letting her mom cry.
Yeah.
As she just couldn't believe that her perfect 4-year-old had something wrong. And I'm still friends with them to date. And I remember just comforting her and saying, hearing loss is one part of your daughter. Well, this young lady, her hearing loss did progress. Mm-hmm. She eventually received 2 cochlear implants. Okay. She is in her mid-20s today in college. She's thriving. Yeah. She did amazing. And she said, I've always looked back to what you told my mom. Hearing loss is one part of me.
One part of you.
Yeah.
So she's still a patient of yours?
She moved to another state, but I actually went to Massachusetts to visit her. She took me to Maine for a visit. So when she's been back in Michigan, we've visited and we've stayed in touch all of these years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That is pretty beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a good story, with whatever we're dealt with, being able to deal with it.
Some handicaps are invisible. Hearing loss is invisible.
Right.
And then I always tell my patients, all of us have some disability in some way, shape, or form. We all have something not quite perfect. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. You can overcome any obstacles and you work with what you're given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is so true. I say that often. I go, well, we all have something.
We do.
And no matter whatever the rest of the world may appear, everybody has something.
That's exactly right. Be kind.
Yeah, be kind. So we talked a lot about accepting that. So from childbirth now with your seniors and as they get older, and it's the progressive loss. So talk to us a little bit more about that acceptance.
So accepting hearing loss can be very difficult for some people. There is unfortunately a stigma attached with hearing aids, right? That wearing a hearing aid makes you feeble, you're old, you're kind of put out to pasture. I'm out to change that narrative. Okay. When you have hearing loss, we talk about maintaining what you still have or working with what you have and improving on it. So if we can get you to accept that you have hearing loss, and I say there is help available, people still have this mental image of that big old clunky hearing aid without realizing technology these days is amazing. Yeah. And what we're starting to talk about is hearing health is brain health. Okay. So your ears help funnel in the sound, but your brain does the actual hearing and interpretation. Yeah. So we talk to our patients as they get older. A hearing loss is more noticeable than a hearing aid. Oh, okay. People who know you, they know you have hearing loss. Right. They watch TV with you. They go to dinner with you. If you get a hearing aid, it says you care. You care about those relationships and communication because you don't exist in isolation. Right. Right now, it's very tough. Baby boomers, they are that generation that just are not going to go old. They're going to stay young. And so trying to get them to accept a hearing aid does not make you old. Not dealing with your hearing loss is what's making you look old.
difficult.
Yeah.
That's a great perspective and a great narrative.
I'm out to change it.
I am too. I'm out to, the narrative about sign language and hearing aids and cochlear implants, all that with it, and the deaf community will come along and say that too, that we're not disabled. We're different abled.
Yeah, other abled. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's really,
I think that's empowering.
Yeah.
That they've learned how to live in a community that isn't always friendly to minorities, no matter what it is. I mean, it could be a wheelchair. We're not a wheelchair accessible world.
Right.
We're not always very friendly to the deaf community or others. And I like that they advocate for themselves and they frame it in such a positive manner.
Yeah.
This is us and we can still do.
Exactly. I love that too. So one of the things that I remember when I was taking signing classes, you use your eyes to hear, right? So our eyes would get so tired, and the instructors knew that. They were deaf. And so they were like, yeah, I know your eyes are tired, right? Because you're not used to listening with them. So, but hearing, when you're losing your hearing, that can be fatiguing as well.
So that's a real phenomenon, auditory fatigue.
Okay.
When you don't hear normally, you have to listen more attentively, which requires more energy.
Yeah.
You have to focus. You can't multitask. I have normal hearing. If I'm having a conversation, I could probably, be tying my shoes or filing my nails and still attend. When you have hearing loss, you're relying on your eyes to help. So you're going to focus more. You're going to lean in. You're going to strain.
Yeah.
People with hearing loss, by the end of the day, they're more tired. They feel it in here because you're just so ultra focused on not missing a word.
Right.
And it's very tiresome.
Very tiresome.
So, yeah, that is real.
Yeah. And I know in the recent interviews that we've done on the blog, Sarah Novak, she's a deaf author, phenomenal author. You have to read her books. You can't put them down.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, she says that too. And I've read other, and that they'll be in a hearing event, and there might be an interpreter signing, but they just get tired and turn it off.
Yeah, it requires a lot of listening effort.
Yeah.
So we talk to people that when you wear hearing aids, you require less listening effort. You will be less fatigued. We know what happens when our bodies are tired. We're less likely to remember. We're more anxious. We're more frustrated, annoyed. So a hearing aid doesn't just help the hearing loss. It really helps your whole body. And so we're starting to say hearing health is a very important part of your overall health.
Yeah. And that's a great next question is that, okay, so you have a newborn or you're a baby boomer or anywhere in between. How do you recommend, protecting our ears? Or if there is a progressive hearing loss going on, what are some things we can do to preserve?
So as audiologists, we have a very broad scope of knowledge and practice. So we're not just here to sell a hearing aid. We are educated on all aspects of hearing. Mm-hmm. And hearing protection is very important. Mm-hmm. So what I see mostly older people, your two main strikes against you are aging and noise exposure. Mm-hmm. I can't stop the aging process, but you can limit your noise exposure. Mm-hmm. We talk about everything from mowing the lawn, running a leaf blower, fireworks, some of these sporting events. Look at football these days. Yeah. They've got the meter up there telling you how loud it is. Seattle, they call the crowd the 13th man on the field because that crowd can be so loud, it can make the team not hear what they need to hear. But when you think about sustaining that amount of noise, it can cause hearing loss.
Yeah.
And so we're very big. We have a little handout we give to our patients showing them what's loud. These days, even some vacuum cleaners or blow dryers could be loud.
Yes.
And loud enough to do damage. So we talk about very basic hearing protection, which can just be earmuffs.
Yeah.
Can also get much more expensive and sophisticated with electronic protection for our hunters. So we're very big on hearing conservation.
Yeah, well, I can see that where my generation maybe might have some preconceived notions about hearing aids and, how big they are.
Yeah, because your grandpa's hearing aid, it was ugly. It was awful.
It was.
Yeah, and with digital technology and advancements in nano production and how small we can make these, most times people come in with the notion, I'm not wearing a hearing aid, they're ugly. And then I show them one, or I put it on their ear and they look in the mirror and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So if we can get past that social stigma and what they were in the past, so many people are pleased with their technology these days.
Yeah. Technology, like our phones, it's crazy how it changes so much. Well, I know that you're very involved in audiology and been given some huge awards. I'd love to hear about them.
Thank you. So several years ago, Rayovac is one of the battery manufacturers in our industry. They would run a contest every year looking for the hearing professional of the year. Patients could write in and submit whoever. Okay. So in 2011, I won the regional award for the Midwest, which was exciting.
Very good.
And then in 2012, I was voted the hearing professional of the year for the country, which was very exciting. Both years, it allowed me to donate my winnings to a hearing charity of my choice. I chose the Starkey Foundation. Okay. They go on missions nationally and around the globe, fitting people with hearing aids. It's my goal one day to be on one of those missions, but I felt very strongly. I've seen what they do
throughout the United States
and also globally.
Yeah.
So for instance, they've partnered with the Clinton Bush Initiative and they've committed to fitting 1 million hearing aids in 10 years. So that would, a big commitment, and they are standing behind what they do. And I just felt that would be a great choice.
Yeah, it is a great choice. And I'm curious, how does Rayovac get into? So
they're a battery supplier for hearing aids.
Oh, for hearing aids.
Okay.
Yeah. But they give back in their...
Yes. So all of the winners, depending on what you won, you had like from 500 to 2,500 that you could donate, which was amazing. Yeah. And then when we opened this office, we somehow got nominated for the Detroit Free Press Best of the Best.
Good.
And so we won for Best Audiologist in Hearing Aid Center in 2020. And then we repeated it again in 2021, which was quite an honor. We really pride ourselves on what we do here. We're very proud of the patient experience. We don't feel that we're selling you a hearing aid. We're here to educate you, help improve your quality of life, your communication. And we're very proud that work is getting recognized.
I'm thinking of a story you might have shared with me earlier about a young lady that you still keep in contact with.
Yes.
Can you share with our audience that?
I will, and I don't think Elise would mind at all.
Okay.
So she came to see me when she was 4, and we diagnosed her with partial hearing loss. And again, her mom was very upset. I remember fitting her with hearing aids because she was so young. Speech and language therapy was, of course, involved.
Very important.
She received educational resources through the school. The hearing loss progressed very quickly. They were in the process of moving out east. They moved to Massachusetts and then Maine. And thank goodness for social media. We were able to reconnect. I went to a conference in Maine a couple years ago, let them know we were out. We took the little drive. We went to Maine, had lobster rolls. Elise, over the years, she has embraced her hearing loss and very moving. She's always said, I just remember you told me that was one part. When she was 8 years old, she did a school presentation for science class on hearing loss and cochlear implants. She has always been very open. As she's gotten older, she's very vocal about her hearing loss and how it's not stopped her from doing anything. I saw her a couple years ago, right before COVID. She came to visit her friend, and we, of course, went out for ice cream. We made the effort to see each other, and we talk on social media. And every year on National Cochlear Implant Day, she'll send a message and say, thank you, Angie. And because
I think you mentioned you had said to her that her hearing was only one part of all of her.
Her family is very religious and spiritual, and they've prayed a lot, and they're very fortunate. And they say this is Elise and she's not broken. She has hearing loss.
Right.
She's in college. She's engaged. She's a beautiful young woman.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful.
I love that. And I think that's a great note to kind of complete on that. Right. Hearing loss is simply a hearing loss.
That's exactly right. Why will we walk with a cane and wear glasses?
Yeah.
Use a walker. And I will say to my patients, they're sitting across from me and they might be aged and they walked their walker in and they said, I'm not wearing a hearing aid. I'm not old.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, would you have dreamt of walking into my office without your walker? Well, no, I need my walker.
Yeah.
You need a hearing aid to improve the quality of your life and your communication.
Yeah.
And once you start to present it and you say things that I feel are common sense because I deal with every day, no one's ever addressed that. No one's ever had the talk, the psychology behind hearing loss. And it is such a difficult, isolating disease, but it doesn't have to be.
Right. Right. That's awesome. Yes. Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. And so if someone wants to get in contact with you, what's your contact?
So here now, Audiology and Tinnitus Center. We are located on Garfield in Clinton Township. The phone number is 586-333-5405. You can find us online, hearnowcenter.com.
Very good.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah. Thank you, Angie.